excited about our next speaker. We had a leadership from Sri Lanka. We moved to Las Vegas, and now we are in Loveland, Ohio, with Audrey Boydston, who is a master facilitator, trainer, and leadership coach. She's a frequent speaker and presenter at Agile conferences and meetups globally, and most recently co-created the Training from the Back of the Room virtual course with best-selling author Cheryl Bowman and a team of 10 global trainers. With extensive experience helping organizations lead through change and increase employee engagement, Audrey finds great purpose in connecting people through the power of learning. And learning and sharing and collaborating we are here, Audrey. It's a real gift to have you share your wisdom and expertise with all of us today. Thanks for your leadership.
Thank you, Jose, for that lovely introduction. I'm really excited to spend some time with all of you today talking about one of my passion areas, about enterprise value. So we're going to talk about what it means to lead with intention by actually infusing your core values into your leadership. So values, we all have them, right? Ones we've learned from our family, from our education, our relationships. Honesty, integrity, respect for others, and giving back to the community are just a few that might come to mind. Now, I want you to think for a moment about the values of the organization that you're working in today. Can you bring those to mind? Over the last 2 years, I have asked this question over and over again to multiple individuals in multiple organizations, big ones, small ones, global ones, local ones. I want to share some of the typical responses that I've heard from them. The first one, I remember seeing them on a wall somewhere, and they might even be able to name the room where they saw them, but they couldn't name those values. I think they're in a shared drive somewhere, possibly even on our website. They may have been announced at one of our town halls, one of our last all hands meetings. I don't know ours. But if you're interested, I can tell you about the core values in the last enterprise where a lot of us came from. And then there's my favorite one, that aha moment of, well, I actually don't know, but I am curious now and I wonder who I could ask. Personally, I have to admit that there have been times that I've lost sight of what my organization's values are. When I suddenly realized this, I started asking everyone from team members all the way to the CEO. I was on a mission for us to find what our values were, to uncover them. Now, some of you might say, well, Audrey, couldn't you just figure this out by watching and observing how people actually act in your company? That's definitely something to consider. It may be likely that you may be using some of the examples of what your organizations do, what they believe in, to see what your organization values. Think about how some of those values shine forth in your leader behaviors, even if they're not written and shared. And this could be your starting point. Because leaders have such tremendous influence over the values of the organization, establishing them, then being able to operationalize them, and integrating them into your processes and sustaining them, it's our responsibility as leaders to share the values of the organization with everyone in the organization, top to bottom, left to right, everyone, team level, individual level. Sharing, the most powerful thing that I've seen leaders do too is sharing what those values mean to them personally, because I think it actually takes courage, it takes authenticity, and a lot of other leader behaviors that we're hoping to see more and more of these days. So there's an interesting pattern that I've discovered in all of my research that I want to share with you. It's an overarching, I'll call it like this overarching umbrella value, if you will. It's like a theme. Sometimes it's a standalone and it's just one overarching one. Sometimes there's a number of values that actually come up to this master theme. At Scaled Agile, ours is what you see on the back of this t-shirt here, do all the good you can. It actually started off directly related to our give back programs. Our leadership team definitely has a heart for the communities that we live and work in. And a lot of the volunteer work that we do specifically is around communities around the world. To me, there was such an opportunity, though, to extend my thinking into how this value applied to everything else that I do at Skilled Agile. This became a guide that I still use daily, hourly, whenever I'm meeting with customers, when I'm interacting with other colleagues at work, when I'm interacting with other people in the industry like yourselves. When you think about it, a value such as do all the good you can opens up so many possibilities, even around ideation and innovation and on how to do this. So you might be asking why I'm placing such a large emphasis on values. So let's start there. I believe there are 3 ways that you have listed on the screen here where these values tie into your leadership and your organization to actually help you achieve better outcomes. So it's about outcomes, and it's about rallying your people around these values in order to achieve what you're looking for as part of your Agile transformation. The value is in having these organizational values both apparent and transparent in your organization. So let's start with aligning behaviors. So my next question is, how are you as leaders aligning with your behaviors with the values of your organization? Now, I'm not here to make you feel bad if you are in the group of, hey, I really don't know what my company's values are now. Rather, I would like to present this as an opportunity for you to seek these out and share with you some of the outcomes that arise from very intentionally keeping your organizational values at the forefront of everything that you do as a leader. Values help you know as a leader what your behaviors should be to reflect those values. They serve as a compass to actually gauge if your behaviors, how you actually show up, have that direct tie-in for the organization. So here's an example of behaviors tied to a specific value in your Agile transformation. Value of people. I can't count the number of stories I've heard about how important it is to start valuing people. We are no longer resources, we are no longer FTEs, and some of you might be smiling at these terms, but it's all around people and focusing around the growth of people. That might be one of your core values. So when you think about the behaviors are, as leaders, are you finding the right opportunities for your people? Are you providing the time and space for them to innovate? Are you providing the time and space for them to learn among each other and share with each other? That's an example of how you would actually exemplify this behavior. Do the right thing was a core value in one of my last companies, and there are ideas on what that looked like. So my leaders actually provided some guidance. So they not only had this as a value, but they had a few sentences to say, hey, here's some examples of how you can exemplify this behavior in our enterprise, related to our customers, related to your colleagues, related to us, and so forth. So let's extend that landscape a little bit. Doing the right thing to me meant I would never sacrifice quality to get something out the door faster to my customers, even if they were begging for it, like, please, I want this now. If I knew that there would be a better experience if I waited, doing the right thing was always top of mind in any decision that I made, which is one of the things we're going to talk about next. Doing the right thing also meant that I ask other colleagues for their opinions and their ideas rather than just assuming that I had the right one. So being a leader is really all about leading by example. In fact, at Skilled Agile, we've developed an entire leadership program around this. But one of the most important messages that I want you to walk away with aligning behaviors is that if you're not establishing values and then aligning your behaviors with them, others, including your employees, your customers, your colleagues, will decide what you really value. And it's not enough to put them on a wall. This isn't something to revisit just on a cadence like, oh, it's that time, let's go revisit our values again, see how we're doing. They need to be top of mind with everything that you do. You have to align your behaviors and your actions with the values that you're stating in order for them to be true. And you can't do this if they're not top of mind. So here's a few more examples that I wanted to share with you. If you value openness, ask yourself, are you having the conversations that you need to have? If you value everyone has a voice, which is one of our inherent values that we have and we hold dear, our CEO holds very dear to this one. Are you watching for hesitancy from some people and actively inviting them to share? If you observe that some people may not be comfortable participating in what we call crucial conversations, are you helping find a way to get them better at this? I recently became certified to teach crucial conversations, so I could do just that. So having a value and sharing the behaviors to exemplify that behavior, that value, are not necessarily enough. Sometimes you might need to take it to the next step and equip your employees, your associates, to be able to exemplify that value. So complement your decision making. This is the second one. So when you're making decisions, whether they be small scale, whether they be large scale, it doesn't really matter. But are you considering your values and the impact on your customers? If you stand for this, and yet you make a decision for this, and they don't match, think of the impact. The values help you know if you're on track with what you're working on. One of the things that we've considered is, do we need to revisit any decisions that we might have made that don't align with our values? Not just from the learning of it, but maybe it's a decision that had a long-term impact. Are there any changes, maybe any adjustments that we might need to make? So you might have many options, many perspectives, but your values help guide your decisions to ones that honor these values. So clarifying your vision. Visions change over time. We often hear, hey, we have a new leader suite. We have even one new leader that's leading our transformation, and their vision for this is a little bit different. And that's okay. Visions can change, but values are intended to stay the same over time. So by seeking out our values and keeping them in the forefront of every conversation around our changing visions and strategies, we ensure that we do not go off course from what we stand for. Values guide behaviors while you're working to achieve your vision. One of the most powerful things that I've ever experienced is a leader sharing how his vision connected directly to the values of the organization. We understood the why behind the change in vision as he was introducing it. And we could actually literally picture in our minds where that vision would take us. And we knew right then and there that it was the right thing to do because it aligned with our core values, what we believed in as a company. So if I could see you, probably have almost every hand in the house raised on this one, being part of an agile transformation. Transformations, well, change is hard, right? It's not easy to make the change, the shift, to actually change the way that you're working and to help influence the behaviors of others to change as well. But having a vision for that change and seeing how it directly relates to the values of your organization is a great way to get people on board. Helping them understand what those connections are, because connecting people and the work that they do with an outcome that they can achieve together, especially those that directly help fulfill the vision for that company, is a powerful thing. So this is our vision: work differently, build the future. I had the pleasure of leading our strategy sessions earlier this year with our leadership team, and we have a refresh of our vision. It was just amazing, the experience as how this all came together. Now, when you think about that value theme that I talked about a little earlier of do all the good you can, more things, now when you think about our vision, it all seems to come together. So when you think of our customers and all of the amazing products and services that they offer to our world, it's an honor to be able to help deliver on this vision because I'm aligned with our core value. I am motivated to do all the good I can so that our customers can do all the good they can. So as leaders, while it's important to communicate your vision and values, that's step one. So we can go around and say, hey, guess what? This is our vision. Work differently, build a future. Okay, what does that mean for us? Show me some examples of how that plays out. How does work differently, build a future help us to do all the good that we can? Because we need to have that direct connection there. So step one is really communicating that. But another step that might not always be there is paying attention to how your message is received by your people and your customers. Whether you believe it or not, everyone's watching. When you have a vision and when you have values as a company, as an organization, and your customers and your employees know that, people are watching to see how you react, how you behave in accordance with that. So by doing this and communicating and over communicating perhaps, you take a step to operationalizing your values so they become natural, they become top of mind in everything that you do. And so people can easily shift their mind into, I can see that direct connection with my values and the vision that we have for our company. So let's look at an example of intentional alignment, how these behaviors, the decision-making, and the vision all comes together. So I found this amazing example of one company's values and how their leaders infuse their values in all three. Now, if I asked all of you, which of you have the small blue can with the little red straw in it, that WD-40 can that is in probably most household garages globally? This is from the CEO of WD-40, Gary Ridge. And I had the pleasure of actually meeting him and interviewing him a few years ago. And this is one of his passion areas. What they've done is actually prioritize these because they believe that not only do we have values, these are what we stand for, and this is what we believe in, and these are part of our core. But they thought, hey, there might be a conflict here. What if I'm trying to make money? Number 6, I'm trying to sustain the WD-40 economy, and at the same time, I need to do the right thing, which might not enable me potentially as much profit if I make this decision. Number 1's going to win out no matter what. They have these prioritized that above all things, doing the right thing is going to trump whatever that next value might be. The second one, creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. So can you see how if you were an employee of this company and your leadership brought you these values of, hey, we want to create positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. Can you see how that can equate to the work that you do and the excitement and the passion that you're going to have around what you do and the products that you offer for your customers? Making it better than it is today. Very similar to that, doing all the good that you can. It feels like every time I have a presentation, the night before or that day of, I come across something that I just have to add in, that it just is that perfect extra message there. And so Gary actually posted this last night on LinkedIn in response to something. So I wanted to share it with you. He said, purpose-driven, passionate people guided by their values create amazing outcomes. All right, so values send a message of who you are as a company. We've already said that, what you stand for, what your customers know you as, and they stand the test of time no matter what's going on around you. So I'd like to share an experience through which I started to reflect on my values and the connection to the values of my organization, and especially top of mind how my behaviors as a leader reflected those values. A few years ago, I took Disney's Approach to Leadership Excellence course and found it to be quite eye-opening. Here's that really resonated with me. It said creating a system of shared values indicates what the organization stands for, who they are in terms of crisis, and who they are when times are good. When leaders show up in ways that are aligned with that, it allows us to be able to use this lens when looking at the organization and propelling it forward. Now think about our current environment and everything that's been going on for the last couple of years, and how many, most actually, if not all, industries were disrupted and are continuing to be disrupted. Values are something that stay. They don't change. They reflect who you are as a company. So even with all of these pivots in strategies and in visions, the real question to ask is, have our values remained the same? Have they remained intact? Have we protected them at all costs? What we stand for as a company, what we hold to be true and part of who we are, has that stayed the same? And do our behaviors as leaders align with them? Think about what you do and how you show up as a leader. Couple questions here. What is the value system that you use to make decisions? And based on the behaviors of the organization, what is the value system that the organization is using to make decisions? And is there alignment between the two? I believe that values-infused leaders cultivate success in their organization and in their agile transformations by making values foundational to their decision-making. When we think this way, we know who we are and what we stand for, and maybe why we're going where we're going. So the number one question I get all the time, how do I make this sustainable, Audrey? How can I make it so it's not just the cool new thing that's going to just over time not be as strong as it was in the beginning? So it's all about influencing behaviors. So I'm excited to share with you a really cool new concept that, you know, when you see something once and it resonates with you and you seem to see it in so many different places, and maybe it's been there all along, but it took maybe a number of different times to see it before it actually really stuck and resonated. So there's this concept called deliberate practice. And this is by the Dr. Andres Erickson is his name. He created this concept. And what it means, it involves putting sustained effort into improving your performance. But here's what you do. So you start with a goal in mind, like sustaining the connection of our values with our behaviors and the visions that we bring forward. So you start with that. It requires focused attention, something that, if you're like me, seems to be quite difficult these days with all the meetings and all the distractions and a lot of the disruptions going on. This focused attention is on the practice and improving based on coaching. So you have a goal in mind, you're incrementally trying some things, you're practicing, you're receiving some coaching, you're looking at how to improve that, knowing that there could be some setbacks, but continuing on with that mindset to be able to learn and improve. There are many studies out there to show that spending time and effort in deliberate practice results in outcomes even more so than having an innate ability to do something. So last night, I was at a lacrosse practice with my son. And one of the things that we did is he was in one lacrosse group, one lacrosse club traveling team. And we found another one that we just saw so much growth in these players every time we would play with them. So we signed him up for that as well. And he goes to both of their practices each week. And there's a huge difference between the two. The one is, rather than deliberate practice, it's practice. It's, here's some skills that we need to keep practicing on, but that that live, interactive coaching and working on improving, and then actually putting that into action. Hey, I'm showing you how to catch. Let's try this. I'm showing you how to defend. I'm going to put you in the defense position for a little bit. And then we're going to talk about it and we're going to find improvement opportunities. That's what deliberate practice looks like. The other one, they're just doing drills over and over again. And the improvements and the outcomes are just amazing to watch, even in his ability from being introduced to what deliberate practice offers. So I want to share another example of what we do at Scaled Agile and how we're using deliberate practice related to our values. Since we use the Scaled Agile framework to run our business, we all meet together quarterly for our planning sessions. Starting with one of the sessions in 2020, we now started asking the teams to choose one of our core values to really focus on for that quarter. We have a few and we said, look, which one really resonates with you that you want to start working on? You want to start thinking about how you're organizing your work, how you're interacting with our customers, how you're making decisions on how we're delivering that to the customer and how we're interacting together. So pick one, right? Incremental improvements. Let's pick one for each quarter and let's see what you come up with. And they're at liberty to choose whichever value that they want and strive towards getting better at it. So we have business objectives in that same meeting that are actually tying to our vision. And now we're very intentionally tying in these values as well. So as we draw this part of the session to a close and get ready for all of your great questions, I would like you to consider something. That is, what would an organization be like that encouraged employees to follow values in everything that they do? And that same organization had leaders who do the same. It starts with you. Part of your role as a leader is to establish and showcase values in everything that you do. My appeal to you today is threefold. First one, to discover or rediscover and reflect on your organization's values. To intentionally align your leadership behaviors with these values. Work with colleagues. If you're like, oh, I'm not really sure how to exhibit this one, what are some examples? Great. Have some conversations with some of your peers, some of the leaders in your organization. And the third one is to connect your organizational values with the vision that you have for your company, your decision-making processes, and your customers. The effect is cumulative. If all leaders act intentionally, purposefully, and in a values-infused way, the global organization that you're a part of, or a local one for that matter, will thrive. Every leader is telling a story about what he or she values. What's the story that you're telling? All right.
Fantastic, Audrey. What a great coverage of such an important topic. Comments and questions and discussions that have happened in parallel while you're presenting here, and I'll pick a few of them. Right off the bat, let's talk a little bit about your company, Scaled Agile. What does that mean? Why the name? What is the mission here?
Of Scaled Agile, like our vision to work differently and build the future. And our mission is very close to that. We have a refreshed mission that we have on our website, and it's actually around the products that we're doing to help organizations thrive and grow and use what we call the most trusted vehicle for achieving business agility.
And your focus, the organizational focus, working with leaders and teams on values and intentional, deliberate practice of new behaviors. Is that something that you focus on?
Yes, that's part of it. Yes. So the Scaled Agile framework is actually, it's the whole system that helps you scale agility. So we started, gosh, it's been over 20 years, right? 2001 with Agile. Lean's been around even way longer than that. And what we've done is we realized that you can't just have a few teams that need each other working separately. And especially when you think of all the complex products and solutions enterprises across the globe are working on, you need some type of a structure. Lots of success patterns that we've seen out there in the industry, we have taken and we have put together into the Scaled Agile framework. So it's not just about the ceremonies that we have for, you know, aligning everybody around what that common vision and that mission is, but how are you organizing your work? How are you making, as senior leaders even, some of those budgetary decisions, right? We can't just have these annual sessions and say, okay, let's go back to the drawing table next year. What are some of the tools that we can offer you to start to think about this incrementally and being able to shift, change, and make changes to your direction based on what's going on in the economy around us, the market, what our customers are looking for, and so forth.
You know, you have highlighted so many critical items for organizations that become leaders and dominant in their fields, and certainly, you know, the alignment of the values and the cultures and the consistency of that message and living your values deliberately over a long period of time. So I'm curious, because you work across so many different types of organizations with so many different leadership teams. What do you think sets apart those leadership teams that are able to do that well versus the ones that kind of fumble, or they talk a little bit about it, but they fumble? What is the secret sauce of the successful ones?
How much time do we have? Some of it is actually innate behaviors. And what we have found is, now that we call this the digital age, right? History is so telling. We look at all the different patterns that we've seen in history, and where we are now, there's a different workforce out there, right? So it requires a different leadership set. It requires different behaviors that are allowing autonomy, more innovation, space for people to learn and grow together, and helping them, you know, decentralize some of the decisions that you make. So it's not just this command control, it's a whole new world, it feels like, not to take a Disney reference in there. And so one of the things that I believe the secret sauce is, when leaders focus on the health of the organization, number one, above all else, and making sure that we have right people in the right roles, and people truly enjoy what they're doing, and they have all of the skill sets that they need to continue to be successful. That, to me, is step number one. So one of the things that we recently did, in addition to bringing crucial conversations and some of these other, I call them human skills, it's not these soft skills, right? It's, hey, basic human skills that we need. But we also, there's a new model by Patrick Lencioni called the 6 Working Geniuses. And it really helps you identify the areas, the passion areas for each and every one of your employees. Who likes to ideate versus who likes to say, hand it off to me, I'll take it from here and work on it. So exploring your employees in so many different ways, developing those relationships with them, to me, is number one in really helping create that culture that's going to enable you to be successful. One more thing that I want to say on that one, we all talk about, you know, what the benefits are for every product, right? We have 4, right? Faster time to market, the people want, you know, productivity. We want to have a focus on quality. Employee engagement is the other one. And I was doing a webinar of a year or so ago, and somebody asked me, like, what's your number one, Audrey? And I said employee engagement. Before I even took a breath, like, I feel like it was in my head before I actually, like, I said it before I even thought through it, but it's true. So leaders who are helping organizations be successful focus on them first and foremost. If you have engaged employees, you're going to get faster delivery. You're going to have quality. You're going to have more productivity out of them because they're really enjoying what they do rather than being in a spot that's not enjoyable to them, and you're not reaping the benefits either.
That's tremendous insight, Audrey. Thanks for sharing that. When, you know, we had professionals and leaders in the, you know, in the hybrid perhaps, that are participating in the discussion, they are saying, you know, what are the capabilities that I need to develop to help in this journey? So as you think about professionals and leaders, whether they're hierarchical leaders or just influencers, what do you think are the capabilities that individuals and organizations and the organizations themselves need to focus on developing in the next few years to be able to drive culture and the right behaviors?
Wow, that's a lot to unpack there. I'm going to give you a few. One of the things is, and I'm going to start with this, because a lot of times you could say, okay, what are all the skill sets that we need to garner? And it could get really pricey really fast, right? One of the things, a concept I developed when I worked actually with Capital One, is called learning networks. And what we did is we found, because there's no one size fits all for this answer too, by the way, so I'll give you a couple of different things. One of the things that we did is, as part of our agile transformation, we realized that we might have been lacking in some skills in one area, but we knew people in other, even business units, that had the skills that we need. So we started these learning networks, and hey, I wanted to, as an example, I want to learn more about coaching. I feel like I was put into this coaching role. I don't have that formal training, or I did, and it was a 4-day class and it just wasn't enough. What are some of the things that I can do? Who can help me, mentor me, and learn even more about this? And we would find people in the organization. It was like this, I felt like it was a network of networks. Whatever we needed to learn, whatever skill set that we wanted in our business unit, we could find undoubtedly somewhere else, or we could have somebody go outside, learn that, being able to train it and bring it in-house, which is what I've been doing. I was doing there, and I'm kind of doing that as a side job where I am now. Another one, so crucial conversations, I think number one. There are so many times, and I think you'd all be, or maybe many of you would be shaking your head at this. How many times have you had an email chain go back and forth and back and forth? And half the people think a decision was made, half the people think it wasn't because maybe they weren't happy with it. And it still goes back and forth. And there's all this wasted time. Same time, the same things happen in a meeting. And it's over and over again. It's swirling, and you think you're aligned and you're really not aligned. That's not always the case, but it happens a lot. I know I've experienced it a lot. So how are we helping develop the skill sets in all of our employees to have conversations that are meaningful in meetings, helping them understand how to reach alignment and what that looks like, and to honor what you've decided rather than going on their own path? So crucial conversations is another one. We were in a setting where I believed, the way crucial conversations is, people result to what they call a verbal violence on one part and silence on the other. We had silence going on. I wanted to help that. So I brought in crucial conversations. And I realized, even reflecting on my previous behaviors, gosh, there were times that I was just like, you know what, I'm going to tap out here. I feel like I'm not going to influence. There's nothing that I can do to change this. I'm just going to tap out. But now I'm equipped with the tools to be able to be part and participate and share my meaning in those conversations. And I'm trying to do the same thing for our leaders and for all of our associates. There's also an influencer training, like how do you influence behaviors? Leading change. There's so many, and I feel like that is the sweet spot, helping people gain and improve on their skills to interact together is, to me, far more important than starting in any other area to change that culture.
Those are great insights, Audrey. I really appreciate that. As I recall from your presentation, if I can think through some of the items that you talked about, you discussed a very important hierarchy for being intentional and deliberate, use that word, about culture and about behaviors. Now, we know that culture are the exhibited behaviors of people in teams and organizations. So that founds the culture. And changing behaviors is really hard. So a lot of transformations and cultural transformations are tremendous failures because, you don't really have a very clear view of what the new behaviors you want to have. And then you don't, and even if you do, there's a tremendous journey that you need to embark on, and you need to be chronically consistent with that purpose for a long period of time. So you talk about you need to have a purpose, you need to have values associated with that, you have to have a belief system that's associated with that, then you have to develop mindsets associated with that, then you have to have the right principles associated with those mindsets. But a lot of companies stop at those principles. I will give an example. They'll tell companies that we're going to be more innovative. So let's say that that's the behavior that we want to have more of, and we want to have a culture of innovation. They stop at the principles. They do everything. They have the purpose, the values, the mindsets, the beliefs, the mindsets, the principles, and then they start talking about innovation, telling people to go do good. But people don't know how to do it because they don't know how to translate the principles of innovation into actions that create value, which are the behaviors, the observable behaviors. So I call that the mechanisms, translating the principles into behaviors so that it doesn't become platitudes. Tell me a little bit about your experience about mechanisms, because while the why is very important, I come across a lot of organizations right now that are talking about the why, but they have no idea on how to translate the why into what they do. So how do you implement mechanisms that translate principles into actions, and these principles don't just become platitudes?
So here's an example, since you just brought up innovation, let's start there. We have what we call a problem solving workshop, and it's part of our product, so all of our customers globally are using this. What we do is, I had mentioned these annual planning sessions where we organize our work for the next quarter and figure out how we need to collaborate with each other and so forth. We reserve specific amounts of time at each one at the end of those quarters for innovation. So number one is you have to reserve the time. If you don't, the tyranny of the urgent, we call it, is going to happen, right? You're not going to have that time. So creating that time, right? Creating that space. And then what we do is in this problem solving workshop, we're like, hey, what's holding you back? What are some of the things that are just driving you nuts? Things that are keeping you up at 2 o'clock in the morning? How can we make your work better? How can we deliver better to our customers? What are some of the things that you would love to fix? Because guess what? Here's some time. Let's have some hackathons, we call them. Let's figure it out. So we might have just some improvement items that might take longer that we put on a backlog and make sure that they do see the light of day. Or we might just have all day hackathons, which we're going to actually have in a couple of weeks, providing the space for people to do that. That's one of the mechanisms that we have. When you think of change leadership as an example, you're ready to undergo an agile transformation. And what I see all too often is, okay, I have previous project managers and program managers. Might be a number of us here, myself included, that was a previous project manager or program manager. And we might say, let's just do a lift and shift. This was your job before. I think it aligns quite well to this one in the agile space. Or you're a business analyst, I think you'd make a great product owner. All of you, put you over here. We've just said this one might equate to this when it really, really doesn't. So one of the mechanisms that we can do to keep engagement and keep growth of employees and actually reduce that attrition is to find out and explore what they enjoy doing, what they want to do, where some of their skill sets are. And you might have some project managers now becoming product owners. You might have them becoming scrum masters. You might have them becoming coaches, or maybe they're actually leading the transformation. So it's really meeting people where they are so you can support them on their continuous learning journey in their new role, whatever that might be. I'm trying to think of on the spot, sorry, some of the other ones that we might have.
You cover it very, very well. Really, truly a masterclass on culture and transformation. I mean, we're so grateful for you to take the time to share your wisdom and expertise with us. Before we wrap up, I want to ask you, I already provided to the audience our LinkedIn connection so they can connect with us on LinkedIn, but what is the best way of following your work and what Scaled Agile is doing for the world right now? What is the best way of connecting with you?
So on LinkedIn, that's my, I like to tell people that's my Facebook. I'm not big into Facebook, but I love LinkedIn. I love, because I just keep learning. And so whenever there's cool new stuff coming out, new things that that I'm creating, I love to post there. So I would love to connect with any and all of you that would enjoy doing so. We also have our Scaled Agile framework site that the Scaled Agile actually LinkedIn site is probably the most up to date and instant of all the really cool stuff that's happening. So that would be my recommendation. We also have our company website that has all of that great stuff. It has our new refreshed vision, mission, where we're going, what our products look like, and so forth.
And can you repeat to us what your company website URL is?
It is scaledagileframework.com.
Scaledagileframework.com. That's
Yep.
terrific. Audrey, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your expertise with our global audience today. We really have learned a tremendous amount, very practical insights. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Jose. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That was Audrey Boydston, Enterprise Transformation Leader for Scaled Agile. What a tremendous presentation, setting the stage for intentional leadership of core values and infusing those core values into your leadership. Wonderful presentation. We're going to be taking a break now, and when we come back, I'm going to wrap up with a cross-industry benchmark of 1,000 plus award-winning organizations on excellence, innovation, culture, business, and digital transformation. We're going to look at in a very fluid way, we're going to look at what's behind these great enduring organizations and leaders who are able to engage the heads, the hands, and the hearts of all of those in the organization, and to pursue a common purpose to create significant value for all stakeholders. So we're going to look at what it looks like from a benchmarking perspective, the key principles and mechanisms that they use to implement improvements and innovations that create significant value for all stakeholders. So taking a break now, I'll see you back with that wrap up at the top of the hour.